Trust is one of those powerful yet often unspoken forces that shape the quality of our lives, both individually as well as collectively. While we may not always be aware of it, trust is woven into every aspect of our daily interactions, our communities, and broader society. It's a profound yet fragile bond, one that enables cooperation and well being. In exploring why trust matters, we find that it goes far beyond personal relationships. It's the very foundation on which healthy societies are built. Now, today we're going to delve into the diverse ways trust is studied across disciplines like sociology, psychology, and economics. In order to see the unique lens that each looks at trust with, to gain a broader definition, a broader understanding of trust, so that we can integrate that into our personal lives. And as we go through these different perspectives, we're going to uncover how trust builds resilient relationships, cohesive communities, and thriving economies. Through these different lenses, we'll highlight the importance of actively building trust in everyday life on all of those levels, personally, socially, economically. Trust isn't just a personal virtue. It's a social necessity that bridges divides that separate us. It enables us to be more resilient and creates the supportive, caring world we all want to be in. So let's start by looking at how trust is understood across several different fields of study. Each offers a unique perspective that deepens our understanding of its importance. Sociology, psychology, and economics are some of the primary disciplines that examine trust in intricate detail, each adding different layers to our collective understanding of this fundamental human experience. Sociologists view trust as a crucial element of social capital, the network of relationships and shared values that allows communities to function effectively. Studies have shown that communities with high levels of trust are generally more resilient and healthier and much more supportive. Trust influences everything from neighborhood cohesion to participation in community activities, even philanthropy. Imagine a neighborhood where people genuinely believe in each other's goodwill. Parents are more comfortable letting their kids play outside, neighbors feel more secure leaving their doors unlocked, and people are more likely to come together to address shared issues, improving local schools, supporting small businesses, working and filling in those cracks on the sidewalk. So it's interesting, levels of trust vary tremendously between different regions and even countries. In the United States, for example, places like Minnesota report high levels of trust, which correlate with stronger social services, higher levels of volunteering, and just overall greater community engagement. In contrast, regions with lower trust, such as certain parts of the Deep South, often see less community cohesion and more significant income disparity. This reduces access to health care and even educational resources. On a global scale, countries like Norway, where 65% of people report high trust in others, has low crime rate, has high life satisfaction, has an amazing welfare system, whereas places like Brazil, where only 2% report high levels of trust, social issues are more prevalent. Economic disparity is huge. In practical terms, fostering trust in communities could mean encouraging transparency in local governance, promoting inclusive community events, and addressing issues of inequality that erodes trust between people. For example, a city council that actively involves residents in decision making might build trust by making citizens feel valued and heard. When trust is built, people are more likely to participate in community life, and this strengthens the bonds between people, making the area more resilient to social challenges that exist everywhere. Psychology provides another lens. Examining trust as a foundational element in human development and relationships. Developmental psychologists like Eric Erikson have emphasized that trust is the first and most crucial task of early childhood. It allows infants to explore the world with a sense of security, knowing they're supported by those that are taking care of them. John Bowlby and attachment theorists like Mary Ainsworth expanded on this work, demonstrating that children who feel securely attached to a caregiver grow up with a stronger ability to form healthy relationships. On the other hand, those who lack these foundational elements of trust, they struggle with insecurity and loneliness, having a hard time connecting with others. An everyday example of trust in psychology can be seen in our friendships and in our partnerships. Imagine a close friend who consistently shows up when you need them, or a partner who listens attentively and caring what you have to say when you're sharing your thoughts and feelings. These behaviors reinforce a deep level of trust, allowing for more vulnerability, leading to more emotional intimacy, leading to more trust. Without trust, relationships become marked with suspicion and anxiety, making it difficult to communicate. Therapists often help people recognize and repair these breaches in trust, such as betrayals or consistent emotional unavailability, teaching clients to rebuild safety and confidence in their relationships. Another example in therapy, couples who've experienced betrayal might work through steps to rebuild trust by practicing transparency and accountability and consistent emotional support. Now, betrayals are heartbreaking. They turn your life upside down. But over time, these sort of practices can restore trust by showing that each partner values the other's emotional security and well-being, mending that betrayal. Economists view trust as essential for the smooth operation of markets. Trust reduces what's called transaction costs, time, energy, and resources needed to ensure that agreements and exchanges are honored. Now, when trust is high, economic transactions are simpler and more efficient, reducing the need for lengthy contracts, complex negotiations, or legal disputes. Imagine a local business owner who orders supplies on credit from a supplier. If both sides trust each other, the transaction proceeds smoothly. But if there's mistrust, they may require contracts, needing legal fees, and then third-party arbitration to make sure the deal goes through. By reducing the need for these safeguards, trust minimizes the costs and promotes the stability of doing business. In larger economic systems, trust in institutions, such as the banking system or regulatory agencies, creates economic growth. That's because people are more willing to invest, take risks, and innovate. For example, in a society with a trusted banking system, people feel safe. They feel secure depositing their money, which in turn allows the banks to lend, invest, and support more economic growth. In times of crisis, we see the effects of trust in economic systems vividly. After the financial crisis in 2008, a significant erosion of trust in banks and large financial institutions led to a surge in regulations and public demand for accountability. Rebuilding that trust has been an ongoing process, with new safeguards and ethical standards introduced to ensure transparency and fairness. The key takeaway here is that trust is a unifying force across many fields, from fostering community engagement, supporting mental health, to enabling economic stability. Its presence reinforces social bonds, while when it's missing, creates divides that hurts everybody. And when we consider the importance of trust on the societal level, it becomes clear it's more than just an individual choice. It's a collective good. Trust in others and institutions, in the societal structures. It all helps create a sense of security, enabling people to invest in each other and work together towards shared goals. Whether we're talking about neighbors supporting each other during difficult times, or citizens voting and participating in democratic processes, or just families creating nurturing homes for the next generation, trust is an invisible thread that holds everything in our lives together. In a trusted society, citizens feel safe, engaging in collective action. whether that means voting in elections, joining community initiatives, advocating for social change. High levels of trust also correlate with greater life satisfaction and mental health. A trusted society is one where people feel connected and empowered to contribute to the common good, leading to stronger communities and happier individuals. Now, on the other side, the absence of trust only leads to isolation and fragmentation. When people don't trust each other or the institutions around them, they withdraw from community life. People hesitate to participate in public discussions. They, they hesitate helping each other or even asking for help when it's needed. This loss of trust creates division, weakening the social fabric. To put it in practical terms, consider the difference between two communities after a natural disaster. In a high trust community, people are just more likely to come together, organizing relief efforts, supporting those who've lost their homes. But in a low trust community, people feel reluctant to join collective efforts, fearing that others are going to take advantage of them, or that authorities won't follow through on the promises, leaving them to foot the bill. This contrast illustrates how deeply trust impacts not just personal relationships, but the solidarity of, of the society around us. Given how important trust is, it's crucial to actively foster and protect it, both in your personal relationships and in your communities. So, here are some practical steps that can help build and sustain that trust in your lives. Number one, be consistent and reliable. Trust grows when people consistently demonstrate reliability. Simple actions, just showing up on time, following through on promises, being there for others. That's what creates a foundation of dependability. Whether in friendships or business dealings, small acts of reliability add up over time. Number two, communicate openly and honestly. Open communication is key to building trust. By expressing thoughts and feelings transparently, we make ourselves more predictable and reduce misunderstandings. For example, in a work environment, being transparent about project timelines and challenges, it builds trust among the team members because they can anticipate what everyone else is going to do and what their real intentions are. Number three, show empathy and respect. Trust is built on a foundation of respect and empathy. Taking the time to listen, validate others' experiences, and just show understanding deepens the sense of connection between people. You know, for example, imagine a manager who listens attentively to their employees' concerns and shows understanding of what they're struggling with. What this does is it creates a culture where employees feel like they're valued and they're secure in their job and they can actually reach out to find solutions, helping everybody. Number four, practicing accountability and apologizing when you need to. Trust is fragile because we're fragile, and even small betrayals erode it. When mistakes happen, you have to acknowledge them and apologize. This goes a long way in rebuilding that trust. When it comes to family, if a parent misses an important event for their kid, a sincere apology mixed in with a commitment to make it up to them goes a long way in repairing any hurt that was caused. Trust isn't a luxury, it's a necessity. It binds individuals, communities, and societies together. The foundation upon which healthy relationships and resilient societies are built. By actively nurturing trust in our personal lives and our communities, we create a world that's not only more supportive and connected, but also more resilient in the face of challenges. Yet remember, trust is the glue that makes cooperation even possible. Understanding and measuring trust in relationships can feel elusive, but game theory offers a structured approach to observing how trust, or the lack thereof, manifests through our interactions. By breaking down these exchanges into patterns of cooperation and conflict, it can help you gain insight into how trust operates at a granular level, In relationships, trust can be reflected in different types of exchanges or, according to the name, game theory, games. Partners play with one another, each with its own set of dynamics and implications. The game theory is a tool that allows us to categorize relationship interactions into patterns, which we can observe and understand at different levels of trust. So it's helpful to dive into the different types of exchanges, or like I said, games, and see how they illuminate the trust dynamics. The first is a mutual cooperation pattern. You can call it nice, nice. In this nice, nice interaction, both partners are engaging nicely. They're positive, they're kind, they're showing affection, they're being attentive towards one another. These are the moments when each side shows that they're considering the other's needs and emotions. Both parties benefit from the mutual care they're showing to each other. So for example, imagine a couple at the end of a long day. One partner offers to make tea, while the other thanks and expresses appreciation. In these small but meaningful interactions, trust and expressions of appreciation are like a game of tennis. They're small, but they're supportive. The research shows that these sort of interactions are foundational to a relationship's health. Couples who often engage in this nice, nice interchange, they tend to report higher satisfaction and stability in their relationship. Then there's neutral, neutral. You can unemotional cooperation. Here, the interactions are those where neither partner expresses strong emotions or positive or negative responses to one another. Everyone is just kind of being dismissive, as though being bored, or there's a lack of passion. These exchanges are actually a critical stabilizer in relationships. Neutrality can be essential, especially during moments of conflict, because it signals that partners can discuss issues without escalating. The second is neutral neutral, unemotional cooperation. Now, these interactions are those in which neither partner expresses strong emotions either way, positive or negative. Often dismissed as boring or lacking passion, these exchanges are actually a critical stabilizer in relationships. Neutrality can be essential, especially during moments of conflict, because it signals that partners can discuss issues without escalating emotions. Imagine a situation where one partner calmly mentions, I think we're running low on groceries, and the other responds neutrally, oh, let's add it to the list for tomorrow. These interactions may seem mundane, but they create a peaceful foundation. Interestingly, neutral neutral exchanges are more frequent among long term happy couples who can handle conflict without turning it into a heated argument. The last is negative reciprocity. You can think of it as nasty nasty. The nasty nasty exchange is the opposite of the first dynamic. Nice, nice. Here, both partners are engaging in negativity. They're reacting to one another with hostility, sarcasm, and defensiveness. These exchanges escalate quickly, pulling both sides into a state where each response fuels the next negative response. Like a fire that keeps reigniting, things just keep getting hotter and hotter. A simple disagreement, such as one partner forgetting an errand, turns into a nasty, nasty exchange when the response becomes personal. You never listen to me. Followed up by, well, you always criticize everything I do. Each partner feels attacked, and the negative loop reinforces itself. This leads into what's called an absorbing state. The concept of the absorbing state is vital to understanding how some couples are trapped in a cycle of distrust and negative reciprocity. An absorbing state's one where once you get into it, it becomes very hard to leave. In relationships, this nasty, nasty dynamic often becomes this type of state, this business as usual. When partners repeatedly experience these negative exchanges, they build up layers of resentment, making it making it difficult to disengage from this feedback loop. Now, why does it happen? Many couples in this nasty, nasty state experience what researchers call negative sentiment override. This means that they see their partner's actions through a negative lens, interpreting even neutral or positive gestures as potentially hostile or even unkind. For example, if one partner makes a remark as simple as, "Did you remember to lock the door?" It might be heard as, "You're irresponsible, you forget everything," even when no criticism was intended. It might have even been a sweet gesture because the person was worried about their partner's safety. This kind of negative override creates a quicksand effect. Once a couple's pulled in, every interaction feels loaded with mistrust, making it very hard to have any positive or restorative exchange. Now, being able to recognize and exit this nasty, nasty state is essential for a healthy relationship. The more effectively a couple can shift from negative reciprocity to either a neutral or positive exchange, the healthier and more resilient that relationship is going to be. So, here are some practical strategies to help couples avoid and get out of this horrible trap. Number one, pause and reflect before you respond. During a heated exchange, taking a brief pause can help break the cycle. When one partner feels triggered by a negative comment, a pause allows them to reflect rather than immediately react. Instead of snapping back, a partner could take a deep breath and say, "Let me think about that for a second," or excuse themselves just for a moment. This pause can disrupt the automatic escalation, creating space for a more measured response. Number two, practice repair attempts. Repair attempts are small gestures made to diffuse tension and signal a willingness to reconnect. These can include apologies, some humor, gentle touch, just to tone things down. If an argument's getting heated, one partner might say, "Hey, I think we're both getting frustrated. Let's take a break and come back to this." Another example of a repair attempt could be humor. If one partner spills a drink during a tense conversation, the other might say something like, "Well, at least I'm consistent with my clumsiness." By introducing lightness, you can interrupt the cycle of negativity. Number three, you can shift into neutral communication. Moving out of this nasty, nasty dynamic doesn't always mean jumping to positivity. Sometimes it's simply just shifting to a neutral tone, and that can break the cycle. This could involve discussing a logistics issue, like who's going to pick up the kids, or you know what time to leave for an event. Something unemotional, something that's a matter of a fact topic. Practicing this neutral communication during conflict teaches each other that you can handle disagreement without personal attacks, and this builds emotional resilience. Acknowledging each other's perspective is another way out. Validation, even without full agreement, it's a powerful tool for breaking out of this cycle. You might say, I see that you're feeling hurt by what's happening, and I'm sorry that I played a role in it. Even if you don't agree with every detail, this type of acknowledgement can reduce the intensity of the negative interaction. When both partners feel heard and validated, it's a lot easier to soften up and move towards some understanding. And the last thing you can do is focus on rebuilding positive sentiment. Rebuilding trust involves, like I said, consistent small efforts outside of the conflict situation. So couples can practice daily acts of kindness, showing appreciation, spending quality time together. And over time, this positivity helps shift the couple's perception from negative to neutral or even positive. For instance, making an effort to express appreciation, like saying, "Thank you for handling dinner. I know it's a lot," helps reframe the relationship in a more positive light. These small affirmations build emotional safety, reducing the likelihood that minor conflicts will spiral out of control. The trust matrix offers a structured way to gauge the level of trust in a relationship by measuring how often partners successfully exist in this nasty, nasty dichotomy. A high trust matrix reflects a relationship where partners can consistently repair and recover from negative interactions. allowing them to return to neutral or positive exchanges. In contrast, a low trust matrix suggests a pattern where negative interactions are hard to resolve, leaving everybody mirrored in the absorbing state of conflict. To understand the importance of the trust matrix, let's consider a hypothetical couple, Abraham and Sarah. Now, during conflicts, Sarah and Abraham frequently fall into this nasty, nasty exchange, criticizing each other and reacting defensively. Initially, they struggle to find their way out of the pattern, but over time, they begin to use some of the repair strategies we've discussed. Sarah starts taking pauses before responding, and Abraham makes a habit of acknowledging Sarah's feelings, even when they disagree. Now, over time, they can find that they can exit this nasty, nasty exchange more easily, and their trust matrix improves as they develop confidence in each other's goodwill during these tense moments. So, practical takeaway: trust in relationships is not just about avoiding negative interactions. It's about learning to navigate them constructively. By building skills for repair, communication, and emotional regulation, couples can avoid getting trapped into the nasty, nasty dichotomy and strengthen their overall trust. Now, measuring and maintaining trust, it's an ongoing process in a relationship, one that relies on the consistent effort and cooperation of both partners. Through the lens of game theory, we can see that the types of interactions, nice, nice, neutral, neutral, and nasty, nasty, are more than just moments. They're patterns that define the quality of our relationships over time. Trust grows when couples can repair and navigate conflicts, choosing to move out of the nasty, nasty state and into a space of at least neutrality, but definitely mutual care. So trust, therefore, it's not merely an absence of conflict, but it's the presence of a willingness to reconnect even after difficult times. Couples who succeed in maintaining trust, they do so because they do so not because they never disagree, but because they have the tools to manage those disagreements constructively. They can preserve their emotional bond and create a strong foundation for a thriving relationship. The trust matrix is a practical tool designed to measure and understand trust in relationships, particularly during conflict. Trust is nuanced. It's the underlying confidence that each side has that the other will act in their best interests for the other. Even in challenging moments, each person has each other's back. Now, by quantifying trust, researchers have created a way to observe and strengthen this quality. The trust matrix built around three key measurements that illuminate how partners can foster trust by handling conflict in ways that prioritize the other's needs and values. Here's how each part of this matrix works and why it matters. So, number one, measure behavioral responses during conflict. Now, this first step of the trust matrix focuses on assessing each partner's behaviors during moments of conflict. The primary question is, does one partner's behavior help positively shift the other's emotions or reactions? If so, this indicates a willingness to act in the other's interests, which is the core component of trust. Consider a situation where one partner, Sarah, feels disappointed because of Abraham. He forgot an important family event. Now, Sarah might initially feel hurt and become defensive, leading to a rather heated exchange. However, if Abraham can respond by calming his own emotions and validating Sarah's feelings, by saying, "Hey, I understand why you're upset. I'd feel the same way if I were in your shoes." He demonstrates a willingness to put Sarah's needs above his own. His behavior can help shift the conversation from conflict towards understanding, demonstrating that he values Sarah's emotional experience. This behavior is measurable within the trust matrix, as it shows a moment where trust building behaviors are in action. On a practical level, building trust in this way can involve remaining calm and managing reactivity. Partners who practice self soothing can respond in measured ways rather than fueling the conflict. Techniques like deep breathing, taking a pause, or a grounding exercise help reduce emotional intensity here. Showing empathy is another way out. Statements that validate the other's experience, like, I see why this is important to you, signal genuine care, helping the partner feel heard and understood. By examining these behavioral responses, the trust matrix assesses each partner's ability to de escalate attention and foster trust, one interaction at a time. Number two, calculate advances out of conflict. What this means is that the second aspect of trust, of the trust metric, looks at how often each partner helps move the relationship out of a nasty, nasty conflict state and into a more neutral or positive space. So, in practical terms, this metric measures how successful each partner is at repairing during a conflict, a vital skill for maintaining long term trust. So, imagine a couple, Avram and Sarah, in the midst of an argument about money. That's a common one. As the discussion heats up, they both become defensive, slipping into a negative cycle where each feels unheard and misunderstood. Now, this nasty, nasty state, it's familiar territory in relationships, and escaping it requires deliberate repair attempts. Suppose that Avram decides to de escalate by saying, hey, listen, I realize this is getting tense. I don't want us to argue. Can we take a step back and try and figure out a solution together? And Sarah may feel soothed by this shift and reciprocate. She'd say something like, yeah, I don't want to fight either. Let's figure this out. This advance out of conflict maneuver shows both partners' willingness to restore harmony, and it's measurable within the trust metric. So, to promote these advances in practical terms, a partner can use gentle humor or lighthearted comments to break the tension without dismissing the conflict. This can help both sides feel at ease, reducing the likelihood of further escalation. You can make repair attempts through verbal or nonverbal signals. Reach out, hold each other's hands, say something like, I didn't mean to hurt you. Such gestures demonstrate a commitment to keeping the connection intact even during hard times. Or you can express a shared goal or some common ground. We're on the same team here. You can remind each other that you're both working together, not against one another. When couples succeed in moving from the nasty, nasty part of things to a neutral stance or really the nice, nice state, it shows that they have the tools to to mitigate the negativity and cultivate trust, even when emotions are high. The trust metric quantifies these transitions, capturing how effectively each partner can advance out of the conflict, showing the resilience of trust in the relationship. The third thing here is validity indicators, signs of a high trust matrix. So, trust is a complex emotional state, and when it's present, it's often accompanied by a number of positive qualities in the relationship. So, validity indicators within the trust metric, it helps you determine if the trust is genuinely high because they're revealing patterns of behavior that correlate with what you'd find if there's trust. So a few key indicators: low levels of aggression and negativity. Couples with high trust, generally they experience fewer fights, fewer criticisms when there is a conflict. You'll never escape from disagreement, but it won't be hostile and it won't be sharp. Instead of attacking or blaming, partners are more likely to express their concerns constructively. A partner might say, "Man, I'm feeling really stressed when our plans change unexpectedly," rather than, God, you're always so inconsistent. Another indicator is increased emotional attunement. Emotional attunement refers to the ability to tune into a partner's emotions and to respond with empathy. Couples with strong trust often show a high degree of sensitivity to each other's emotional states, given support when the other person's distressed. If one partner seems overwhelmed, the other might notice and say, hey, it seems like you're tired. Do you need a break? And the last indicator would be just a greater relationship satisfaction. Research shows that a high trust matrix correlates with deeper relationship satisfaction. That's because couples with high trust have a stable foundation, allowing them to face challenges without feeling that their bond is threatened. They feel secure in each other's commitment, knowing they can count on one another, especially in hard times. Each of these indicators point to the strength of trust within a relationship. The presence of these qualities suggests that trust is not only high, but it's resilient, allowing the couple to face adversity while remaining connected. Here are five key practical takeaways. The bottom line being small, actionable steps to foster trust during a fight. It's not about grand gestures being in a relationship. It's about the small stuff. It's about being consistent. That reflects the fact that you care and you respect your partner, and that really you're just prioritizing the relationship. So here are some practical small steps that you can put into effect during a conflict to show that. The number one is practice active listening. Work to really listen to your partner's perspective before saying anything. If your partner is telling you that I feel unappreciated when I handle all the chores around the house, reflect back what you're hearing. Hey, listen, I hear you're feeling overwhelmed by all the chores and you like more help. Active listening shows that you're willing to hear their needs and respond thoughtfully. You're not agreeing with what they want, but at the very least, what you're showing is you get what they want. The second thing to do is acknowledge vulnerability. When you express vulnerability, you're you're using a powerful tool that in of itself creates trust. When one partner openly shares vulnerable feelings, feeling fear, feeling insecurity, the other person can respond with empathy, holding that vulnerability, and the fact that you trust them, giving them a chance to hold that by being vulnerable, that's the bottom line. So, for example, if someone says, I feel anxious when we argue about money, so I worry about our future. Something empathic to respond with would be, listen, I didn't realize that. I want you to know we're in this together, and I appreciate you sharing that with me. This validation creates a safe space, reinforcing trust by affirming the other's emotional experience. Number three, use I statements instead of you statements. This is an easy one, but really pays off. During a conflict, frame every concern you have as an I statement and avoid blame and avoid the defensiveness as much as possible. So for example, I feel hurt when you don't discuss big decisions with me. That's way different than you never listen to me. That small little linguistic shift can make a huge difference, keeping the focus on your feelings and needs without assigning blame. And really, the secondary gain of doing that is your needs actually get expressed. Often, when blaming somebody, sure, the need is kind of being communicated, but it's often implicit. By making your need explicit, the other person actually has a shot of understanding you, and you're getting what you want in the relationship. Four, you can commit to consistent repair efforts. Conflict's inevitable, but what matters is how partners repair after an argument. Making consistent efforts to reconnect, whether by initiating conversation, offering a gesture of affection, or just simply saying, hey, I'm sorry, it shows a commitment to the relationship. Regular repair efforts demonstrate a partner's willingness to move forward together. And five, cultivating positivity outside of conflict. Trust isn't just built during moments of conflict, it's also strengthened in day to day interactions. Express gratitude, show appreciation, find ways to celebrate each other's achievements. By consistently building positivity, partners create a cushion of goodwill that helps them absorb the difficult emotions when conflict pops up, enabling both of you to deal with it more constructively. This trust matrix provides us with a lens to observe and nurture trust in our relationships, especially during conflict when trust is most vulnerable. By measuring behavioral responses, it advances out of conflict. And key indicators of trust, we gain insight into the strength and resilience of the bond between us and the person we love. Trust isn't a static quality, it's dynamic. It evolves over time. By cultivating behaviors that reflect understanding and empathy, couples can strengthen their trust and, in turn, their relationship's foundation. Now, remember, trust is built, it's not built on perfection, it's built through the consistent, hard effort of small gestures and a genuine commitment to care for each other, especially when times are tough. Through these everyday interactions, partners reinforce the idea that they're together, they're on each other's side. And that creates a relationship that's not only enduring when fights happen, but is a deep source of comfort and fulfilling. In relationships, we often think of ourselves as rational beings. If our partner is kind to us, we'll respond with kindness too. If they're upset, we try to understand why. But human relationships aren't always governed by the rational give and take. Now, traditional game theory assumes that people act logically to maximize their benefit in any given game. Yet, in real relationships, especially during conflict, emotions frequently override rational decision making, causing us to act in ways that are, a nice way of putting it is, counterproductive, even at the detriment of our own happiness. The trust metric sheds light on how relationships often defy the rules of rational behavior. Now, this traditional game theory would predict if couples find a particular type of interaction, let's say that they're constantly critical, and they find it unpleasant or unsatisfying, a rational understanding would suggest that they'd avoid these interactions. But studies show that unhappy couples often engage in negative and hurtful interactions, even though they rate them poorly and would logically want to avoid them. Now this seemingly irrational behavior reflects the power of role, the power the powerful role that emotions play, especially when negative feelings are present. Resentment, hurt, and defensiveness. Consider this example. Imagine a couple, going back to Abraham and Sarah, who often argue about household responsibilities. Each time this conversation comes up, it escalates. They both walk away feeling drained and misunderstood. Now, according to rational game theory, Sarah and Abraham would eventually avoid these bad patterns because it consistently hurts them. But in reality, what really happens is they continue to revisit the same silly argument over and over, sometimes adding even more frustration and blame. Why is this happening? Emotional states, like feeling unappreciated or overwhelmed, they override our logical responses, keeping them in a destructive cycle where both partners are trapped in what we call an absorbing state of conflict. Now, there's two types of couple conflict. There's absorbing state conflict, as I mentioned, as well as affective repair. Now, understanding the difference between these two types of conflict, that it's essential for both partners and therapists who want to help develop healthier interactions. So let's examine each type in some more detail. Now, the first is absorbing state conflict. This concept of absorbing state in relationships is referring to conflict patterns that persist without resolution and become self reinforcing. When a couple enters an absorbing state of conflict, each negative response seems to pull the other farther into the argument. For example, if one partner feels attacked and responds defensively, that's prompting the other partner to escalate even more. The cycle continues with each negative interaction feeding into the next, creating an almost gravitational pull that's more difficult to escape than the sun. In practical terms, absorbing state conflicts are difficult to get out of because they create emotional wounds that are continually reopened every time you have the same fights. Now imagine a couple, getting back to Sarah and Avraham, who frequently argue about financial issues. Avram feels anxious about spending. He's working hard, he's pulling in extra hours, he wants to provide for his family. Now, Sarah feels criticized and controlled. Why can't she buy the kids sweaters? Winter's coming. Come on, man. Now, each time the topic comes up, they quickly fall into their familiar patterns. Avram accuses Sarah of being irresponsible. Sarah retaliates by calling Abraham overbearing, and before you know it, the conversations escalate into a full-blown fight, screaming, yelling. Even though both feel terrible afterwards, they struggle to break out of this pattern because their reactions are fueled by unresolved emotional triggers. That's the essence of an absorbing state. Once you get into it, it's so hard to get out of it without a conscious, deliberate effort to change that interaction. Now, absorbing state conflict can be especially damaging to relationships because they erode trust over time. When partners aren't able to resolve conflicts, they begin to see each other as enemies, people to overcome, rather than allies. And that weakens the foundation of the mutual support and respect that you need in a relationship. Now, to prevent this, it's essential to recognize the patterns that lead to this absorbing state conflict and find ways to disrupt it, shake up that cycle however you can before it becomes more entrenched. On the other hand, effective repair is a conflict pattern that allows couples to recover from disagreements and restore their emotional connection. Couples who engage in effective repair use positive behaviors like apologies, expressions of empathy, and gentle humor to shift the tone of their interactions, diffusing tensions and showing ultimately a willingness to reconnect. Now, in essence, effective repair is the opposite of absorbing state. Rather than reinforcing negativity, it fosters resilience and trust by showing that both partners are committed to maintaining harmony even when they disagree. Let's say Avram and Sarah, who've been going through this reoccurring disagreement about parenting styles. In one argument, Sarah becomes frustrated with Abraham's approach, and she begins to raise her voice. Now, sensing the tension, Abraham takes a deep breath, step one, and says, I can see you're really passionate about this. I want to understand where you're coming from. Let's talk about it without getting too upset. By acknowledging Sarah's emotions without reacting defensively, Abraham offers an opening for repair. Sarah feels heard. She softens her response. And then the two are able to discuss their perspectives without falling into this nasty, nasty cycle of conflict escalation. Now, for effective repair to work, both partners need to do the following. Number one, recognize the early signs of conflict escalation. Noticing when voices are raised or body language becomes tense. These things can prompt a couple to step back and avoid further escalation. Number two, you can make deliberate repair attempts. Again, using humor, physical gestures, take each other's hand, or using calming statements to soothe the interaction. And third, acknowledge each other's feelings. You got to show empathy. Go for the feeling, ignore the facts. This can help the other person feel understood and reduce the intensity of the conflict. To prevent conflict from slipping into an absorbing state, it's got to be that both partners, as well as the therapist you're seeing, can identify and address negative patterns early on. Now, here are some strategies that can be practically implemented to minimize the likelihood of becoming stuck in these conflict states to begin with. Number one, you got to name the pattern. Simply identifying and naming the pattern can be powerful. When both partners recognize they tend to fall into a nasty, nasty dynamic, they can more easily identify when it's happening and consciously decide to do something different. A couple might agree to call out a timeout when they notice those familiar patterns emerging. And that slips into the second thing you need to be able to do. You got to use timeouts as needed. Now, a timeout, when used constructively, can prevent escalation. If one partner senses that the argument's heading into an absorbing state, they might say something like, hey, let's take a break and come back to this in 15 minutes. I love you. I don't want to fight. I want to find solutions instead. During the break, both can reflect and calm down. And that's essential. You can't take those 15 minutes and nurture and feed the anger and hate you had for the other person. When you can calm down, this can help you re-enter the discussion with a clearer mindset and reduce the chances of flooding. Replace criticism with curiosity is a third thing to do. Curiosity opens up space for understanding, while criticism often closes it down. For example, if one partner feels frustrated about something that the other person's done, they can replace a critical statement of, you always do this, with a question that invites dialogue. Can you help me understand what you were thinking here? That shifts from criticism to curiosity and can help the interaction from becoming adversarial. It reduces the likelihood of getting trapped in that negative loop. And finally, you got to build a bank of positive interactions. You can't just do good in the moment of a fight, you got to do good before. A strong base of positive interactions acts as a buffer against this absorbing state conflict. Partners who frequently express appreciation, gratitude, love, yeah, at the end of the day for one another are more likely to assume the other side loves them and has good intentions during conflicts. When a partner who regularly thanks the other for small acts of kindness, sending them a text randomly saying, I love you, making dinner, doing household chores, allowing them to pick where they're going out to eat, all of that's going to help them feel more secure in their relationship. It makes them easier to navigate disagreements and not fall into negative assumptions. Trust is what enables couples to use effective repair techniques rather than falling into absorbing states. Now, when trust is high, partners feel safer, allowing them to be more open and compassionate. They can risk being forgiving, even during disagreements. Trust simplifies interactions because it reduces the need for constant reassurance and eliminates much of the uncertainty that breeds conflict. Like we mentioned earlier regarding economics, all the contracts and regulations and all the safety checks apply here too. It just makes everything more clean. It enables partners to assume the best of each other, even when tensions are high. Now, imagine two couples facing the same stressful situation, a financial setback. One couple who's got a high trust matrix can approach the problem with a we're in this together mindset, allowing them to support each other through the challenge. They talk openly about their concerns, they make a plan, and even find moments of humor to lighten the load. For this couple, trust has made the crisis manageable. You might not be able to solve the pain of the financial setback, but you can absolutely avoid the suffering of the vicious fighting when trying to navigate it. It allows them to work as a team. Now, think of a second couple with low trust, how they might approach the same financial setback. Be very different. Each partner will become defensive, start blaming the other for the decisions or their unmet expectations. They'll struggle to communicate openly, fearing judgment, fearing criticism. And all of that creates an absorbing state of conflict where trust is obliterated. For this couple, the absence of trust compounds the crisis, adding emotional strain to an already critical situation. Now, here are some practical takeaways to cultivate trust as a foundation for resilience. You can communicate openly about vulnerabilities and fears. This creates emotional safety. It creates understanding. You can build positive habits of acknowledgement and appreciation. These reinforce the sense that they are valued, that your partner is respected. You take ownership of mistakes. Apologize sincerely. And when you're going to apologize, apologize. If you're going to bow, bow low. That shows that your partner has value, that the relationship is important to you. And that's more important than being right. And the last thing you can do is you can seek a shared experience that builds connection and mutual understanding. Now, this creates a bank of positive memories to draw on in times of conflict. Have a date night, have an evening ritual, curl up on the couch with the one you love with a glass of wine every night. Summing this all up, trust is far more than a simple feeling or expectation. It's the binding force that shapes relationships, communities, and societies. Whether through the lens of sociology, psychology, or economics, the importance of trust becomes undeniably clear. It serves as the foundation on which people build resilient relationships, cohesive communities, and thriving economics. Communities with high trust enjoy better health, higher rates of civic engagement, and stronger support systems, as studies from regions with varying levels of trust reveal. Like we talked about in Norway, we got 65% of citizens report high levels of interpersonal trust, benefit from strong welfare systems, and low crime rates. Meanwhile, we got areas in the world like Brazil where only about 2% of citizens trust one another. Often they suffer from the social fragmentation and economic disparities. In relationships, trust fosters resilience and emotional attunement, enabling couples and friends to weather conflicts with empathy and mutual respect. Couples with high trust matrix are shown to experience fewer negative interactions and to recover more effectively from conflicts, resulting in significantly higher relationship satisfaction and even stability. The very act of repairing after conflict, an effort that may seem small, reflects the kind of active and intentional trust that nurtures deeper connections. Now, in practical terms, fostering trust requires consistent, mindful actions, showing up reliably, listening with empathy, and making sincere efforts to repair breaches in trust. Now, this commitment is not a one time thing, it's a lifelong practice, one that strengthens as people navigate both joys and challenges of life together. As individuals can cultivate trust within their relationships, communities and societies can actively work to build trust through transparency, respect, and inclusiveness, creating environments where cooperation and support flourish. Now, ultimately, trust is a shared responsibility as well as a profound gift, a bridge that connects us, a catalyst for resilience, and the invisible thread that holds literally everything together. By nurturing trust in our everyday lives, we contribute not only to the strength of our closest relationships, but also to the health and vitality of the world we share with one another. You got to remember, trust is not just the foundation of healthy relationships, it's the foundation of hope, the foundation of support, it's the foundation of society.